Hello, and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We have two pieces of paper here, one 4¼ by 10" shimmery iridescent type of paper cardstock, and another piece of the Deanna Tubb-Sedillo background papers, 4¼ by 5½. We're going to do two different scenes, and I consider these quick scenes with the I don't know, whatever the format of these two papers, but also the limitations of this type of metallic paper. Okay, so starting off with this metallic paper, you have a coating on here with whatever type of shimmery, material they use to make this type of paper shimmery. I don't know if it's mica in there or something like that, but whatever it is, it's somewhat resistant to certain types of inks. The more watery it is, the less of an ink transfer you can get on here. So it's less porous and coated. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to take advantage of that property and use it accordingly. So I just did a test on here because I've been doing this scene, like this specific scene, many times over the years, but I've been using Stardream paper. I didn't price it just now. I was going to go in and price Stardream, but I forgot to before I came on here. But that paper is pretty expensive in the, maybe it's 110 weight or something like that. I think this one is a 75 pound, but it's still pretty thick. It feels, pretty substantial and really similar to that thicker Stardream. But this one here is like 40 sheets for $10 or something like that. I think the Stardream is something like 25 sheets, maybe for double the cost. I don't know. But I wanted to find out how this paper would work, and I wanted to test it out. I assumed it would work, but I didn't know how it would work in comparison to the Stardream. Okay. And I think this one's a little bit more porous than the Stardream. So the Stardream is a little bit more shimmery. But on the other hand, for us as stampers, being able to stamp on here and get that ink to transfer, it's a pretty good, whatever trade-off. Hello, Phyllis and Linda. How are you? Thanks for the birthday wishes there. Yeah, I didn't do too much yesterday. My son was off doing this, whatever he calls it, tricking. So we're going to celebrate that birthday another date. But yeah, we had a nice quiet evening. So very nice. And yeah, I don't know. Those birthdays come around. I don't even realize it until like, I see it on the calendar, but I tend to forget about them. So I forget about my own. I don't forget about other people's though. But yeah, I was thinking, wait, how old am I now? I forgot. I started forgetting, I don't know, like 15 years ago. Okay, dye-based inks right here. This is going to be the ink that I'm going to use on here, and it's going to be a little bit more watery and less, I should say the most likely to absorb into a non-porous paper, okay? I'm using the Marvy ink right here, which is a little bit thinner. If you use Memento or like another type of ink like from Ranger, it won't go onto this the same as this Marvy one, okay? Those inks are going to be thicker dye inks, so they might not transfer as much, but that might be good in the way that I'm going to be using it here. So thanks, Sherry. All right, let's see here. yeah, Facebook. If you have that, your birthday in Facebook, it gives that notification there for everyone. Okay, so I'm using a re-inker, which I haven't done before on the Stardream in the past. Now, I really wanted to test this paper out because this is one of my favorite cardstocks, is the light blue shimmer style of paper. I love that sheen to it, and I love the color. It's a little bit different than the Stardream one, but when I got those types of papers just because I like the look. I wasn't thinking of applications of this type of shimmer paper back when, but I started ending up with a lot of whatever supply inventory of that type of paper, metallics specifically, in the past. So at one point in time, I tried out the light blue and I thought, it looks pretty good. You know, I couldn't get a good print on it with my stamp, but I thought, okay, so it's like if I stamp something out in black on the Star Dream one, okay, it's more sealed off. It was stamping out maybe in like a 65% gray or something like that. So it's like, okay, so how can we use this then? If it's not printing on here, maybe we can blend on here easier. So that's kind of the whatever, the strategy that I started using on here. So anyways, I like going for these like little wispy types of things. This one right here I'm going to use with the whales and try to do an underwater type of scenario. So this is the dye-based ink on there, but here's just a clean piece of paper towel. Let me see here. See right that? I can go in there and I can kind of manipulate it. It's not going to remove it, but I can go in and move that ink around and you can see where it's, you know, just transferring on here. So one property that might not be, you know, seen as like a positive for sure, you know, in terms of ink applications could be strategically used for a different purpose. You can even see where I've put my finger right there and, you know, it's just removing ink like that. Okay. So that being said, you know, you can really kind of tweak, I would say, your applications of this to suit your purposes. So you can really go for, you know, a pretty smooth application. And I mean, this has been sitting around for, you know, I don't know, a couple minutes here. On the normal types of cardstock, non-metallic, you're not going to be moving that around at all. At this point in time, but you can still really manipulate it quite a bit on this metallic. So it's pretty fun to use if you don't kind of you know, fight it, and you kind of appreciate it and utilize it for its you know, its whatever its properties. You know, it's kind of like people, right? People and friends. All right. So anyways, so I can see, you know, every time I put my finger in here, it's kind of leaving that little mark and removing. So it gets you can feel kind of the changes happening on here as you go through it. Maybe what I should do is I should hold this down with this instead. But I feel it kind of, you know, this ink starts to probably evaporate a little bit. I'll finger here, but it starts to evaporate and probably starts to absorb a little bit more. So the characteristics are changing as I do this. So, you know, I don't want to lay down a base coat and come back like in a half an hour or something like that. But, you know, while you're working on it, you know, there seems to be ample time. And again, if you're doing this in the Memento or Ranger inks, the Distress or something like that, it's going to really give you a lot of time because those inks are so much thicker. So there's going to be like a slower rate of evaporation and absorption in there. So yeah, I'm so ready for some fall weather. We're getting hot next week. It's been a kind of a mild summer for us here in Southern California, but next week it's up in the 90s. So Bonnie, keep stamping those cool weather scenes, or like winter. And thus you will cool mentally. All right, does anyone ever do that, you know, like in colder weather, sometimes it's like, I'm going to stamp out like something like tropical. It's like those micro vacations, as we say, huh? with scenic stamping. Okay, now let's see if I can kind of build this up a little bit. Okay, here. I think it's a good strategy with the your offhand to have that I don't know, whatever, paper towel or something like that. And you can try this if you don't want a paper towel, if it feels too much like you're, I don't know, whatever, like erasing a chalkboard or something like that. You can use like a sponge or something like that. This paper towel seems to work really good though. I don't know if this amount of it's almost like I'm dry brushing this on. So I don't know if a paper, like a sponge, I don't know if that would just get completely destroyed. It'd be perfect though is like a chamois, I think. Like a chamois towel for doing this type of ink application here. Because it's soft and it's absorbent, that might have a really good consistency. Paper towels are a little bit cheaper though. And everyone has that. Everyone has that at home, right? Probably. Okay. Look at that. Even when I added that in there, I touched that like that, and it's like coming off. So it's like I'm building up the ink, and that little bit of a darker layer right there was really floating on top of that other layer in there. So anyways, yeah, metallics, I don't know. A lot of us have some of it. Or if you have like those pearl-coated surfaces, that would probably be about the same. But anyways, it gives you that nice little shimmer. So it's going to be more reflective of light as well than just using just the straight light blue, say a matte cardstock or something like that. You get that little extra reflectiveness, so the light is like, when you're depicting light in a scenic setting or something like that, if the surface itself is a little bit more reflective, you're going to have the benefit of this illusion of kind of the light coming from within the card out, as opposed to just being reflective light, because it's reflecting more. So, yeah. And I love that type of little extra touch like that. So you can't see it. Like when I'm looking at it like here from me to this, but it's like, it's one of those things, if someone holds it up into the light, you get that little bonus. So it's not like always reflecting like this and really super shimmery looking. It's only at certain angles. So if someone's holding your card up or something like that, it's that little extra, I don't know, whatever, 15-20% reflectiveness. It's fun to use pan pastels on it as well. Oh, that's pretty cool, Linda. Yeah, oh, yeah. So that's what I was wondering, Linda. On this one right here, I think it's a little bit more porous. So when I was doing that little test piece, whatever, an hour ago, I think this paper is more porous than the Star Dream. So I'm assuming it's just less shimmery and thus might be a little bit more accepting, possibly, of something like a VersaFine. I still, that still wouldn't be my first choice there of ink on this. Everyone know VersaFine, it's an oil-based pigment ink. But yeah, that it may or may not work on this one. So even if it's like 50% more porous than a Star Dream version, is that porous enough? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be absorbing into the what pores are available on there or not. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be something to test out. I need to get a VersaFine re-inker. I haven't gotten around to it. Okay, so let's put some rocks down at the base here. So this is like freehanding my light beams, okay? We've been adding in these beams with a lot of white pigment ink right here, okay? And I might be able to do like the negative space streaks in here on a piece of white cardstock. I don't know. I think it might be a little bit clunky though. But see, on this one, because it's so closed off, or enough, non-porous, okay, I feel I can really blend that so I can get this, pretty decent application of that on there and have it look, real feathery. So, in other words, instead of going with a positive application of white pigment ink or a lighter pigment ink on top of dark to form the beams, you can go for these negative spaces and thus define these beams like this on this type of paper. So, okay, one of the things I found with this print right here, I've always printed, I think, I'm not exactly sure, 100% sure, but I think I've always done my prints of my objects on top of these backgrounds with the same dye-based ink that I did the streaks in. So they always came out like, that's quite a bit of this black on here, but that's still, what would you say, like a 70% gray or something like that? Like this is like 100% black right here. You can see how much darker of a black that is on here. So I don't know, I tried the Brilliance on here because the Brilliance, again, it's a pigment ink, but it's a water-based pigment ink. So it dries on here, or you can heat set it. But this really, it gave me a pretty good print here. Now I have to kind of stamp and hold for a little bit. As I think, if I just stamp it briefly and lift up, I don't think it's going to transfer very well. Or as thick as if I just let it sit here for a while, okay? Different inks, different, most of the inks, if you do this, you'll get a darker print. It might not happen with like something like StazOn, because StazOn dries so fast. Sometimes if you keep the stamp down and you lift it up, the ink dried, but it stuck to the rubber, because you've had it sitting there, and you lift up and it's like left you like an even lighter print. But all the other inks, usually if you kind of hold, if you're stamping on kind of a paper that's, or surface that's not as porous, sometimes it's better to hold it here for a little bit longer and to let that ink transfer. See, like that's like really light right there. So let me hit that again. Or I'm going to put in some like that, I don't know, whatever, my version of seaweed here pretty soon. Or after this, so maybe that'll be fine. But let me get, let's see, let's go this way. Let me make this one a little bit lighter here too. Drying it from the bottom, drier, I don't know, whatever, mid-dry, medium dry, and then wet up top here. I'm going to go in for this look right here, but more purposeful, so I dried it from here a little bit less dry and wet up here. I think I was holding this one down for, I don't know, like a minute. I'm in this live stream here, so I don't just be holding a stamp here for like 60 seconds. It's like that would be like extra boring. Okay. Yeah, I took off a lot of it. I guess you don't take off as much. See, I don't know. I took off a lot of it because that's what I would do on, just regular cardstock. But this is resistant to it. So anyway, yeah, don't take off as much ink as I did. Okay, let's see right here. I've been doing the same composition, but I want to see these whales in so many different settings, with these different surfaces. And this, when I call this live stream, it's like quick scenes. So these things are really fun to do. I really like this one for Christmas. Someone did this type of scenario for their Christmas card a couple years ago. I think they were on the Facebook group. I think they did that, or said they did. Okay, this right here, let's go for a thicker impression here. I'm standing up and getting a little bit more pressure on that. But let's stamp and hold. In the meantime, I'll do this one right here. The smaller one. This stamp right here is called sea kelp. I'm just joking. I just use it for sea kelp. Okay, let's see. I had to be careful about this right in here because that impression is still going to be quite wet, I believe. Yeah, so when you're working with metallics, foils and stuff like that, if you're stamping on them, you got to watch out for smudges and handling of your card. Like, I'm not even sure if I put my finger right here, I wonder if it would remove some of this ink that's already been laid down. I think that was a pretty solid impression right there. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, that came out pretty good. I was going to say maybe I should just do a peek, where you kind of peek under it and see if it's like stamping out. So if it's not, you can lay it down and it'll still be registered there. You'd have the correct registration. I won't get a double print. Okay, let's see here. Stamp and hold. That one stamped out really dark, so maybe yeah, okay. Yeah. Maybe I don't need to hold for too long. I might be overdoing it, but all right. And I think it's like that, huh? So the Brilliance ink, I've been doing this scene probably for, I don't know, 10, 12 years. Or this one. That type of thing. But yeah, I just don't think that I don't know, I didn't think to use Brilliance in there. Okay, let's see here. Let's go like. Trying to think of how I want this one. Let's go. Where do you want him in the spotlight? How far down do I want it to go? Like right here. Like that. I better get a good impression here with this one. With things like peripheral things and foreground and like that. If it comes out a little bit lighter or regular, no big deal, but you want your subject matter pretty good. Unless you want, maybe with these whales too, I could have done them where they were kind of a little bit lighter. So they're like, a little bit more distant and, what they call visibility, lessons. In the dark waters. Let's see here. Yeah. Think about like that. Now this one right here is definitely going to I need some kind of quote up here, that I'll put on top of this after I mount this. This is really wet down here right now, so be really careful about that. On this type of iridescent cardstock, though, you really don't need to worry about heat setting it like the foils. The foils can change colors sometimes. That real metallic type of surface like that, completely different type of surface than this, whatever it is, mica infused or whatever it is to give it that shine type. But let's give this kind of some texturing in here. I don't tend to like, this just as is in the background. Oh, this one came out pretty decent. But I really like all this texturing on here. I feel that it softens up those applications of the the darker inks in the background. Okay, they're like this is pretty decent and soft. This gets a little bit heavy, but if you lay down something over the top of this whole thing again, it de-emphasizes kind of some thicker areas. Like that's a little. I got that little thing up there that shows, so it's a little bit more of a de-emphasizing of the of those whatever weak spots, your weak application spots. Okay, Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White on a splatter painting brush by Oral-B. Okay, here we go. I was watching this surfing video today, or I don't know when it was, maybe it was like yesterday, but it was saying something like hard to get out, they mean into the waves, but harder to get back in, which reminded me of my days of surfing. Sometimes when the waves start coming up and getting bigger and bigger, and like they call it sets, waves usually come in sets of two or three waves or something like that, the bigger ones. And sometimes when it's like the waves are getting bigger and bigger, it can be hard to get out of the water because there's like this endless set that comes in. Otherwise, you're just going to get pounded. But when I'm splattering this around like that, it reminds me of kind of the look of things underwater as you're all that water is getting kind of oxygenated. Anyways, this is how this scene looks right here. It's really super wet, so I'm not going to put like a lot of detailing down here. Okay, so some of you mentioned like the pan pastels. I didn't test this out here. I test it out right now, but here's a piece of this paper right here. Here's pan pastel right here. I mean, not pan pastel, but a white pastel pencil, okay? And that shows up here, and it applies on here really well. This one's the Carbothello, just pencil, charcoal pencil, like that. So I would go in here and add in some little bit of highlighting in here, or you could, if you want to emphasize this beam a little bit, you can do a little bit of a addition of that white into these rays or something like that. I can't do it right now because this is like, this scene is like totally, or the impressions are completely wet, but that might be a kind of a nice addition in there. Or you can color it more, too, if this is like, this monochromatic just isn't doing it for you and you want to add in a little bit of a, another hint of another color. I probably wouldn't go too far beyond this slightly warmish light blue, like maybe go into a little bit of a green or something like that. That might be kind of cool. Or the whites again. Spray seal, of course, if you use the pastel on here to lock it down at the end. Okay, let's see. Let me add in a little bit of variation in here. If these are like little air bubbles or something like that, you can really add in like a large one. I'm kind of making a little bit of a trail like that. Maybe it's like bubbling up from the like the depths in here like this. If you have a ship or something like that, you can put your sunken ship in the background. Or a creature of the Black Lagoon. See this little bubble thing right there. I'm tempted to put like one dot in front of this. Let's go ahead and do it here. I didn't know if I wanted to put something in front of the whale. because this, these are supposed to be here in the foreground right here. A little bit of extra tone down here too. And let me see if I can get that here. That's really wet right there. So if I put like tone over the top of that, I think it's just going to remove a lot of that ink, but let's go ahead and try it anyway. I'll try it with a cotton ball. It's a real kind of, it'd be better if I heat set it, but I'm going to just move on from this piece here. I'll try to be nice and delicate here. Bottom left and right corner. Yeah, the branch isn't looking too bad there. There are the leaves. It's holding its form, so maybe it's already setting up. I don't know. The Brilliance ink is supposed to be relatively fast drying, reasonably fast drying or whatever. But that looks pretty decent. Let me go for a little bit of this top left and right corner too. And this composition is definitely needing something like, I really see it like a quote coming in here and just laying it down over the top of this somewhere. Or maybe you can have one of those things coming from like right over here and another word over here or something like that. That might be kind of interesting. Okay, I need to be a little bit careful about this up here because this is a Brilliance pigment ink over the top of the dye-based ink, so it doesn't exactly match. Maybe I'll try streaking that. It looks a little bit better. The temperature of these black inks I think it's a little bit different, so it doesn't match exactly. Not that it has to, but anyway. All right, so an underwater, whatever, shimmery type of scenario right here. It's a little bit more reflective. That looks a little bit somber like that. But you can see how much light is reflected in here. It really needs a little bit more of a trail of light too. But I'll hit that, I think. I think the thing to do is to hit it with the pastel pencil. I don't know. What would you guys do? I've had to do the same with chalk sticks to fill in some color. Yeah. This one's a little like, it's a little bit kind of texturally, it's okay, but it can use a little zip of something, huh? Like, or maybe some matting too. Like if I put it in a silver, I put a little white around it, but maybe the silver border right around here sometime. Might be kind of interesting. And I think I would bring out that little, I don't know what you call it, part of the orca whale right there, but if I lighten that up, I don't think I'd want to do it with the paint pen, but this, let me see if I can do it right here. That orca is still real wet there, so I don't want to, let me try it like this. I don't want it so stark white. I just want it a little bit lighter. Let's do that. So I'm being careful here because if I run this pastel pencil into that black, it's going to drag in some of that ink into this area here. And instead of making it lighter, I'm making it, darker. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. That's really subtle. I've lightened that up a little bit. I'll go a little bit more, but then I would bring in some highlight. Now, definitely in here where these rocks are real textural. There's nowhere where I can kind of add some highlighting at this point in time without it smearing around. So I'm going to definitely have to heat set that or just let it air dry and then come into it. But I think a little bit, that little bit more kind of a contrast in here. You can keep it really subtle, like, like something like this. So adding it in there, you can see where that's kind of glowing a little bit more. And then you can kind of, or if you have some white pastel, you can go in there and then streak up this way maybe. And have it a little bit more illuminated. Yeah. And I've never gone over it with white pigmenting too. Like, what if you add like a white pigmenting beam in here? I don't know if it would match up at all, or I don't know if it'd work. I haven't tried it before, but we'll give it a try sometime. But see, like even that little bit of white like that. So I'll add more. I just don't want to put my hand in here. If I have my hand, around here, it's going to be smearing all of this. I don't want to smear this one. It looks pretty decent at this point in time. So it's, these experiments, I don't see them as precious, but it's like, that one's looking pretty good. I can use it as an actual card. So, all right. Deanna Tubb-Sedillo, background papers. Thanks to Deanna Tubb-Sedillo. This is one of her pre-printed 4¼ by 5½. I don't know. Okay, I don't know if this one is the one of. Does anyone recognize this one? Did it come out of one of those packs? If you have her packs, she sent me some. Some cards that they didn't choose for whatever release she had. I don't know how many packs, were in the new release. Maybe 2, I thought. But she sent me some other papers that she really liked, but they didn't put into production. And I definitely know the feeling of that. Back when I used to work at a Stamp in the Hand, when you were designing stamps, a lot of it was just pure speculation if they would use it or not. Even though you knew the way that you would be using them, maybe in conjunction with other ones. You can lobby your own stamps and say, hey, I really need that. They're going to make it, but you didn't want to have to do that. But she had some really cool papers that she sent to me, so I'm not quite sure which ones were the ones that are actually in production, and the ones that weren't accepted. Actually, weren't accepted. I don't know. Maybe you should submit them again, and they would accept them. I'm not sure, or get them into production. Okay, so I'm using the hybrid ink on her paper. I would go something thicker, like a VersaFine Clair, something like that. Just in general, you can play around. I'm sure it accepts dye-based inks as well, but I just think it's a little bit, you get a little bit of a better impression with the thicker styles of ink on the pre-printed papers, okay? So I didn't used to use all these different types of inks at all. It was just like Marby Black. Okay, so I'm using the Seaside Cove right here over the top of a bunch of these clouds down here. It's kind of interesting when you're using these papers. A lot of times I'm thinking about, when I look at them initially, I probably go through this process of thinking, okay, what was Deanna thinking about in terms of the usage of this paper? Like this one right here looks like you're looking off a cliff into like these canyons below, right? Like this, in this little area down in this dip. And then, so I think about how I would use it maybe in that manner. But then with some of them, you might think, okay, well, if I use that lower or a certain portion of it, then I'm probably going to have to use it in a certain way. And then the next thing that you ask yourself is, okay, do you want to use it that way? Or what stamps do you have to use it in that manner? And then, but there might be a portion of the that background paper that you really like, but you're thinking, I want to use it with this other thing. So, you have to think of different ways to use this bottom portion. So that's what I go through when I do these types of things. So I've been using it like this. I've been doing those additional cutout pieces, to go over the top of like really dark areas. down here, because if you're going to stamp on here, if you want to see something, it's going to have to be in black to be able to show in front of this, right? But if you want something light within this area right here, it's going to have to be an additional piece that you put over the top of this. So, I go through things like that. So it's kind of it's a fun process because it's a real creative process too, in formulating these scenarios like that. So I come out with things that I normally, in many cases, I wouldn't normally think about doing. Okay, let's see here. I wanted these sandpipers down here. So this is one of those things here. It's like a... Okay, I have these different sandpipers here. It's on the same whale sea mammal. Pack right here. Well, not sea mammal, but sea life. Okay, so I was thinking about adding in these little rocks here, but you add those in afterwards, because if you have a bunch of rocks in there and you want to stamp this little sandpiper on it, those rocks textures are going to show right through the sandpiper unless you stamp the sandpiper first and you put the rocks around it. So let's do that. I was thinking about using that message in a bottle one too, stamp, but I didn't think I would have space for that. Deanna and I were discussing this, but she wants to do some, I don't know, is this a secret? If it's a secret, sorry, Deanna. But she was thinking, she wanted to do some like larger pieces. Okay, those ones were like my favorites too. They were like, I don't know, whatever, they're 6x8 or something like that. Like a half page background paper. And I feel like with those ones, there's more variation that you can do with those ones. I don't know why, but I don't know, maybe because you're working around certain parameters or something like that. And if you have a wider space, I don't know. There's more kind of options, I guess. Okay. Some different sandpiper like that. And let's add in, I don't think there's anything else I want to do down here. Okay, so this area down here, if I was just stamping this out and doing these background colors on a white piece of paper, I probably would have done more like sandy colors down here. So this is where like, okay, there's more water, like, coming up here, and it's more reflective. And also this one's, it's warm over cool here, so this is where like things like would really be different than what I would normally do or think to do, but I really like that, I don't know. It kind of forces me to kind of branch out a little bit and think about colors in different ways with these background papers. So they kind of lend themselves to kind of like a color enlightenment. Until I do my next scene and I just go back to what I've always been doing. Oh, that was the Brilliance ink. Brilliants are, the hybrid are fine. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, let's see. Okay, so with something like this, I would probably, my tendency would be to bring some of these colors more down into here. But I like this kind of split, whatever, tone scenario like this too. So I'm going to add in, we're going to define more of this Seaside Cove in here. But these are the colors that are already down here. So I'm not going to bring in like reddish, toned shadows in here, unless this whole area down here were those same warm colors. Okay, so when you're thinking about, different shadow colors or something like that, you just go with whatever colors are already inherently down there. And you just choose those accordingly. You can do it in pastels. We're talking about pastels. You can do it in, alcohol inks or something like that. So you just kind of, you just kind of get a range of those colors that are already down here. And this is one of those instances in whatever stamping or coloring, where you're working around existing colors as opposed to just kind of creating everything from scratch from a white piece of paper. So if you want something quick, right, having all that kind of already defined is really fun. But, you think about what you want to do, though, too. In a different way, because you're working around that pre-existing, whatever, state. Does anyone here have these papers? Hello, Zealous, how are you? It's like making a collage. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta harmonize, huh, with what exists. Okay, so see right in here, I'm slowly just kind of defining the shadows. I'm going in where there's kind of a lot of black, like underneath the wave, and I'm just adding in a little bit more of that, okay? So where it's kind of dark, I'm adding more darkness. And just kind of emphasizing that. Okay, let's see. All right, so that was kind of that color that's kind of already down there already. And what I'll do is I'll come in here with the lighter blue. So I already achieved some lighter blues, with this one, because you can just hit it, very lightly like that. So we're getting that range of values. If it's a little bit of a darker shadow, it's like that, right? But this is actually, it's a little bit of a different, it's the same hue, but it's a different, I don't know, what do you call it? It's a different shade of it, or it's not really a different temperature. All right, that. It's kind of, now a lot of these waves were already dark because I'm stamping over that darker background. If I was starting off with a white piece of paper, I would have left those a little bit lighter. But, we have our pastel pencil, we have our acrylic paint pen that we can come in there and reclaim or redefine those areas that are a little bit lighter, and that's also fun to do. This is a really fun thing to do, and one of the things that is occurring to me is when I do this type of thing, I got to make sure that I don't overcolor. Like on Deanna's papers, you already have all of these pre-existing tones already in there, so I don't know, whatever, through muscle memory or something like that, I just feel like I should be coloring more, but, I don't have to, because it's already been established. That's why on those, on Deanna's paper packs, underneath the title and everything like that, Deanna, well, I don't know if it has her name on there or not, but it's paper packs. It says saving stampers time, or something like that. I'm just joking. It doesn't say that. But if you're in a rush, it's really fantastic. Here, let me go down. See, it does have some of this white in here. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit more sandy here. So she has afforded us, you know, a little bit of a temperature change here. So we're going with these browns right here. Ruben C, hello. Thanks for the greeting there, the B-Day greeting. Hello, Patty. Yeah, good to have you in the lives, Ellis Zest. Okay, that brown's a little bit dark there. I think I need to go with kind of a much lighter version. Let's go with this like tan beige-ish color right there, and use that as like more of a little bit of a base coat, I guess, layer. And that having that little bit of a warmer tinge, doesn't it bring a little bit of that warmth down here? I don't think I want to go super warm with that. Something like that. I'm going to do something right here. Let me try a pinkish tinge right here. Okay, let's bring some of this in here too. I'll use an orange here in the spirit of Ruben C there. Get some Arby's tonight and put it on my tab. Ladies and gentlemen, my partner in crime, Ruben. Ruben and I went through the illustration art program together. So I am using some orange right here in the spirit of his presence. He used a lot of warm tones in a lot of his paintings, stuff like that. Me, I was like all cool tones. All right, so a little bit of that warmth down here, kind of reflecting on some of these little areas here and there. Like that. That kind of balanced things off a little bit more in this scenario, didn't it? And let's see, let's do like this. Ruben was a good student, though. That's the difference. Always ready with his rough drafts and everything like that. Did the work. Where me, it was like up until a couple of classes, like a lot of frustration, not knowing kind of what the I don't know, not knowing what the assignment was a lot of times. Frustration with the media. Okay, white pastel pencil, just kind of defining some of these little waves in a very soft, translucent way of sorts. Let's bring some of this down here too. Bring a little variation. I guess those sandpipers are a little bit anemic too, right? Don't forget to color in your objects. Orange was in the orange was the discounted paint. If anyone's ever gone to used to go to the various stamp conventions that we used to attend, you know, Massachusetts, the Grapevine, Texas one, Cincinnati, Akron, Carson, etc. Chances were Ruben was the one that that gave you your stamps. All right, here, let's go like that. All right, let's see here. Let's add in some additional texturing in here. Yeah, okay, here. This is what I was thinking. I was thinking, I'm going to see what this looks like just as is, but it really, I think it could use a little bit more of a horizon up here. So let's do that. Or I don't know, difference, text, shape change from horizon to sky. All right, like this. And again, I hold down a little bit longer on the pre-printed papers. This one's like totally matte though, so I don't really know if I need to do that. But just in case, it gives you a little bit more of a stronger impression. Okay, let's hit this. I want to hit that. There's a little bit that lighter area in here, and that's going to afford me the ability to add a little bit more white pigment ink in there. So let me hit that with a little bit of a heat setting. Okay. And from a textural standpoint, there's not a lot of variation in here. So I still like to use the white pigment ink in here. And we'll hit it with some, we'll use that same splatter painting technique, but we'll hit it right around in here, around these crashing rocks. And that'll really improve, hopefully, like this area right in here, and just giving it a little bit more, I don't know, whatever, visual interest, okay? So I'll show you how this can really change things, or I don't know, whatever, enhance these little areas in this. Not too many wild things in the stamping world, but there were some instances on a couple of the trips we took that were, yeah, whatever, a little bit strange. All right, adding in white pigment ink where light meets darker. Okay, so you can see that. Now that one right there, that little palm stamped out a little bit lighter just to begin with, so I'm just kind of going with that. So I'm adding in this little bit of pigment ink, but see how it's changing that tree right there? So let's do it on half of it right there. So see it instead of it. I feel that that little cluster, palm cluster, has a little bit of a different spirit to it than it would have without the pigment ink, okay? Now there's a way to do that without adding in this pigment ink. It would have been, if I would have been able to anticipate where I want lighter things, you can just remove some of the black ink off there and then stamp it out, and it's going to be lighter to begin with. But it, a lot of times I just find it easier to kind of direct that lighting afterwards. Okay, if it's a big thing, there's like a big tree trunks or something like that, I gotta put a ton of white pigment ink to create that type of look. Then in those instances, maybe it's better just to remove the ink just to begin with. Don't stamp it out to begin with, but on a little thing like that, it's just really easy just to add it in after the fact. All right, so some white pigment ink on a Q-tip down here. It's where I added in some of that pastel pencil. The pastel pencil only gets so light, though. It's really translucent. Moving towards, it's like mid whatever translucency. But I want to get a little bit lighter, so building that up like this might work a little bit better. See that light like that? You can do both, the pastel pencil would be a good way to start, and to build it up kind of more, gradually or accordingly, whatever is looking good to you. Like that. Maybe I'll create a little bit more haze right in here. The better ink to use right around in here would be probably something like a real tan colored pigment ink, which I don't have, so I'm just going to go ahead and go with the white right in here, like that. I say tan because it would be a little bit of a warmer tinge around that colored light that's supposedly reflecting down there, but we're just we've got to use what we have. All right, and let's see. Let's go with our acrylic paint pen. All right, thanks for dropping by, Ruben. Good to see you. Ruben's a really good artist. He uses all kinds of different media too. A lot of different knowledge of paints and things like that. And works on all kinds of different scales. I think, I don't know if the largest piece he's done. I'm trying to remember if he's done larger than like 6 feet across or height. I don't know, one of those dimensions. All right, so getting those little shimmery bits like that on the water. I think that's really important with kind of bodies of water that are textural like that. This little flashing light in here, I've always mentioned this, but they refer to that in photography at least. I guess it's the term overall, but it's specular light. Okay, it's light that's brighter than white. It's because it's like a flashing, reflective little flash of light, so it's not like the color white. That's what this, something like this is supposed to represent. It's white, but but you add that in there, and it really kind of it gives it that dimension and texture that just, I don't know, it brings it to life. All right, so see that right in there? So that really changed it, I thought. The white pigment ink, I didn't add too much of it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I should be a little bit more aggressive with that, because I can barely see it in here. Let's add it a little bit more around a couple of these areas. But don't add it. See, this whole wave right here, you can add it in there, but it would look a little bit heavy. So what you do is you add it in one area of it, and it doesn't matter where. You just kind of choose it. And then, okay, so I'm adding it right here. And then we'll leave some of it as is, okay? And then let's add it again. So again, it's that way, it's an oscillation of light or, texture in there, like that, like so. So it just doesn't become so kind of monotonous. And for us, it's less work, because you don't have to add it everywhere. So it just looks better, just kind of more selectively applied. And let's go in with our, not this one, we'll do some foreground in here. I saved this till the end because if this is going over the top of some of that white pigment ink or these little acrylic paint pen dots, it'll just stamp right over the top of it, and we won't have like a white paint going into like a these reeds here. Again, I'm working around my little sandpiper right there, but I want a little bit kind of in front of it, though, I think. And that is your beach grass right there. We have this nice open area right here for a like a quote stamp. I'll have to see if I have a good quote for that in there. And let's do... Let's see. I'm going to leave this open right over here. Well, here, I'm going to... No, I'll put this low here. I don't like... Or maybe I'll go in front, a little bit in front of that sun. Stamp nice and lightly, like that. When you start stamping out some of these larger stamps and you get down to the end thing like that, especially if it's going to be like in a really high visibility focal point, you don't want to go like, you know, like that. That one's not too bad, but sometimes it can look really kind of squashed like that. It's especially if you're using like glossy paper where it's going to like spread out or something like that. So just nice, light, even pressure when you get down to some small stamps stamped at the end in really high visibility areas. It's more so with the little V formation ducks because they're a lot smaller like that. Posca. Yeah, the Posca would be good. The Posca pens. The Posca pens come in different tip sizes too, right? Do they come in the I've seen the 3mm tip Poscas mostly, right? The bigger, thicker ones, but do they come in kind of the smaller 0.7mm ones? I'm guessing they would, right? So they paint there. That's a big paint pen brand. All right, but anyways, a couple just, you know, I guess this thing wasn't that fast, but it's relatively fast considering kind of what, you know, the end result type of thing. But you can use these papers, you know, certain types of papers. This one is not a pre-printed background, but I find it, you know, somewhat limiting in terms of the amount of media. You know, I'm not going to put like something on this and, you know, this type of paper in general, not just for the scene right here, but it's not going to have like all kinds of different color opportunities on here because this is already a blue piece of paper, right? So, you know, black and white is the way that I would mostly use it. Although we were talking about, you know, there's other different little tones in there might be pretty interesting. And it has enough of a tooth, I think, to take it. I'm going to add a little bit more to this one, but like I said, this one's still a little bit wet. I get a feeling. I'm looking down here, especially of the dark print over that, you know, that background. I think that's still a little bit wet. If you do heat set this, you can do it, but what does, you know, I don't know if you can tell, but this paper is a little bit warped from that heating on there, because I was trying to really heat set that while it was still really quite wet, but this one's been sitting around for a little bit longer. But, you know, I always mount this anyways, so I don't really care if it's a little bit warped, because by the time I double mat it, it's straightened out again anyway. But, you know, it is a metallic paper and it is fairly thick, so really fast types of scene scenarios, and especially, you know, Deanna Tubb-Sedillo background papers, you have a lot of information that's already been established in there for some really quick scenes. All right, so anyway, I was thinking about this, whether or not I would show this right now, but for those of you that are still on right here, and if you like Halloween, I'll show you some new sets. These haven't been ordered or anything like that, but I've just kind of designed them. But I've kind of designed the plate. So this is like, you know, this is the quantity of things. This is like one set right here. But I came out with my Halloween designs last year, and I just didn't have time to get around to my ghosts and some other types of imagery that would go with those things. So I last year was like the first time I've done Halloween images before, but I love that genre and stamping out those scenes. I love stamping out these types of things with, haunted trees and haunted scenarios and stuff like that. It's usually the same stamps that I'm using for the backgrounds, but I'm just doing it in a more somber type of color scheme. A lot of times it's a lot of blacks, grayscale, things like that, heavier tones or something like that to make it a little bit more dramatic. But I've been doing these lanterns. I don't know what I put them on back on the shelf, but I wanted some of these skulls right here, but they have the eyes like that are a little bit more illuminated. So I'm going to have the light coming from within the skull like that. So I thought it would be kind of fun for Halloween garden ornamentation, different types of the headstones, the cemetery. So I did the traditional tombstones before. Things like this, like a girl in a white dress. Now these can be used in a sunset scenario, and they're not going to be spooky or something like that. But in a Halloween scenario, I thought those are always kind of interesting. Or having something like that on a dark, windy road, in the moonlight or something like that. It's like if you're driving along, that's not something you're going to want to see. Some going around a corner, it's like some figure in this white dress, standing there. So. That's what those figures would be. But these little ghosts like this, I thought they were kind of cute, so I did them in both kind of positive or something like that. There's one like a little trick-or-treating. He's got a little lantern right there. I like doing these little lighting things within scenes now with the new things. But in the background, so if it's really dark, I did them in reverse like this so that you can put, some darker things over the top of a darker background, and they're going to show up, and then you can, if you're stamping them over something that's already kind of dark like this, you can bring out those eyeballs in the darkness like that, okay? All right, so that being said, with the more silhouettes, so this is, again, it's just these designs it up, but the ferrymen, using in our Lakeside Cove type of things or something like that. Darker figures, I want to use those in roads, and I have those new street lamp things, so this could be just, a couple going in for a romantic stroll, you know what I mean? But, they can be used in darkness. Here's this castle like this, so a dark road leading up to a castle. This castle right here can be used like with the Seaside Cove like this, like that on top of that. Seaside Cove, really perfect like that, so it can be like out in the ocean type of scenario. The crow on a skull, of course. Oh, so I've always wanted to have like a Bigfoot, so it's like I can finally have these little kind of whatever fantasy types of creatures in here. We got the Loch Ness monster right here, Bigfoot, and I did these ones really small like that. I didn't want them big, because, in those whatever photographs in the 60s or 70s, it's always something like, way in the distance, so you can kind of put this like little obscure thing like way in the distance or something like that. It wouldn't be so, dominant a figure, because they're like a, whatever, fantasy. Witches like this, flying across your moonlight or something like that. I think they'd be really fun in front of a glow-in-the-dark moon, so you can stamp them right over the top of, a glow-in-the-dark moon if you want to, or, one of the full moons. Yeah, little girls like that. I know it's always the little girl kind of, type of thing on a, haunted avenue or something of that sort. But as I look at these things, I'm thinking about all kinds of different usages of them. Spooky tree like this. It's a little bit more gnarled this time around, right? Okay, so I'll have to show you this. These ones I had to like fit into this. Okay, so you see this castle right here. This one it's a little bit more of a lit castle, okay? And then this one's the same castle right here, but it's more nighttime. These ones are more like silhouettes right here. This is the only one I did it with because I wanted to do, I don't have to alter this one so much, but this one can be done like a more of a light lit situation right here. Carriage right here, with the interior illumination going down our dark, whatever, wooded roads or something like that. This is like a little skeleton lady like that. Everything's all kind of upside down in this because I really had to cram everything into this sheet. I wanted like this carriage to be a little bit bigger, but it wouldn't fit on this sheet. I wasn't going to come out with another set. But the hearse right here, right? You can have that parked in front of your cemetery as you're out in the distance or something like that. Here's the smaller spooky tree, but I flipped it so that you can go this way, and then you have this other one kind of more higher up in the distance like that. And then I do have this art foamy version of this tree so that you can just use like parts of it like a hangover, like in the foreground, or you can use it like in a larger scene, like a bigger one. And then it goes like this, like that. And then that one's like back here. So it's like near, farther, farthest, or something like that. Black Lagoon right here. I've been using that Creature of the Black Lagoon piece by Ken Brown Stamps. I didn't just want to redo that same thing, but here's a mummy right here, like from the famous Monsters of Filmland type of scenario. Then I did a little bit of a bigger one, smaller one. Black Lagoon right here. You could use them in our water scenarios. And this little skeleton gentleman right here. It's hard to tell, but he has a skull right here, but he can go with this lady right here, and they can be waltzing down the whatever, Halloween night boulevard and having some fun. But anyways, those are some of these designs. I thought I would show it right now because I thought, I guess I do got to get these in production pretty soon because, it takes a couple weeks to get these in, and it's like the days are going by the months are going by so fast right here. So those are the new designs right there coming out. It's like, oh my God, so there's like the holiday season. So I started on some kind of more wintry designs too, which I haven't had in the past, like wintry trees and Jeannie. I don't know, Jeannie's not here today. Is she on her trip right now? But she asked me for some more, she wants some more like wintry cabins to use. So I'm doing some of that type of thing. I was working on a wintry fence, it has more like snow on it. I have the other fences that can be used in the winter, but this one's actually have like some snow on it. So anyway, a lot of these are packed right here, so you can tell, I've been thinking about these things over the years, and it's like, okay, I can finally get these down now into production here. So I think I'm pretty well set with the Halloween scenario. With last year we had the the Halloween spooky kind of haunted mansion-y types of things, and like I said, it really could start with the pumpkins, and I really love using the cemetery types of tombstones, but again, I wanted to go more like ornamental, with these angels right here. I thought those would look really cool, and just other types of figures to go in these scenarios to really set the mood. Yeah, another fun, Ginger, I can't wait to use these little ghosts like this, I think they're really, pretty cute. Like little carrying that little lantern right there. So I see this little guy, and whatever color you do that little lantern on, you can put a little bit of that glow on, that sheet right there. So hopefully that's pretty fun here. So we were talking about this, whenever I'm doing these like Halloween pieces like Linda Mystrom, we started doing like little beady little glowing eyes in the darkness, in those scenes, with like the acrylic white paint pen, so it's like I wanted, some of these little beady little eyes like that, in the designs themselves, that we can also have in some scenes. So those things really are a nice little detail in those scenarios. We would, and the Halloween's a really fun genre. I don't know why in scenic stamping, but I feel like I feel like I don't know, there's more freedom for some, maybe because it's just whimsical to begin with. So I don't follow things like perspective. You know what I mean? You're gonna have like something really big up close and far behind. Or you can do the small thing up close and the bigger thing in the background. I don't know. It's like little vignettes of figurines and stuff like that. So it feels like, I don't know, for some reason there's a little bit more or whatever artistic freedom. Not that we didn't do this all the time, but I just feel a little bit more free with these types of things, especially in those monster maps, we call them. Just doing a scene with a bunch of these little vignettes of these little scenarios. It could be a cemetery over here and a lake over here, or the monster of the Black Lagoon coming out, or a creature of the Black Lagoon, and all that type of thing. So, yeah. Yeah, so a little fun little ghost this time. Yeah, like that. This one could be kind of spooky, but these ones look like little kids to me. So, well, especially if they're out trick or treating, but yeah, provide a nice little contrast against maybe a little bit more of a spookier kind of a skull or something like this. I don't know. To me, all that type of Halloween stuff, even like the spookiest stuff, is still kind of cute, though. you know. But anyways, different, Halloween scenarios for those of you that like Halloween. Some people hate it, in terms of a genre, but you know, uh, maybe it's not for them. Yeah. Monster collage. Yeah, check out Zealous Est if you type in Stampscapes monster map. There'll probably be a few videos that come up with those ones. When did we start doing those? Was it 2 years ago? I think it was like 2 years ago. So some of these are like close to 11 by 17, so really big pieces. And if you're on Facebook at all, and you go to the Stampscapes Facebook group, not the Stampscapes page, like company page, but the Stampscapes group, you'll see, I don't know how many people, there was a few of those in there over the course of like a couple of years. So it was like 2 years ago and maybe last year. Like Linda's, I don't know, Linda's, yeah, like several of the 11 by 17s up there. But mine are all up in here on the videos too. So I think if you type in monster maps or something like that, or Halloween, Stampscapes Halloween, those ones should pop up as well. But those are really fun to do. So, I don't know. It's like almost overwhelming. But when I was like drawing these things, it was like, okay, I need a hearse, or something like that. Or what would I have in front of the cemetery that can embellish those ones? So it's like, it kept cranking out, while I was in that mode. And before I knew it, I had three different sets here, you know. Uh, I think I did like, I had like one little uh, ghost or something like that, but I thought it'd be kind of fun, if you had like a little bit of a grouping of them, doing like different things. So, anyways, that's, it's like what do you call it? Not, what is it? Sequential designing or something like that. Glad you like them, Cecile. No, they're not up on the site yet, Bonnie. Uh, I'll probably put them up sometime. I don't know. Maybe I'll order them the plates for them maybe next week or something like that. But I thought, I'm gonna show you guys these for whoever's on live tonight, because I thought, it is August 1st already, so the month is going to go by fast, and you don't want to come out with these like too close to Halloween. If people are sending out Halloween things, or just in the Halloween spirit, they got to have time to get them. So time to produce them and time to, I don't know, whatever pick. But yeah, I hope to see kind of a test piece with this tree here from the Art Foamies as well. So that Art Foamies format is really fantastic for kind of oversized stamps, because you can stamp them really easily in terms of pressure. And I can go really big without having like a gazillion dollar wood mat, whatever, cling foam or whatever stamp, But that art foamy format is really fantastic with whatever kind of laser etching that does, So that right there, I think, would be really fun in that larger format. She's been asking me for something for a while, but it's like I want to come up with a really good tree stamp for that. And then they also, I was mentioning, we're also doing that cloud, that negative and positive space cloud stamp. So they're going to do a couple test pieces for me to test out with that. But those two components, if people are really into, like Halloween or something like that, that will be a nice addition to whatever Halloween card scenarios, especially if you work kind of larger, half page, full page, monster maps. All right, folks. You gotta bury yourself in the basement and stamp. Take care of those hands there. How are your hands doing, Linda? Yeah, that tree. It's nice and spooky, huh? I see. I had it right. Where'd it go? Yeah, this is kind of what it looked like right there. But I think I forgot what size I asked for. It's like maybe like this big or something like that. But I see using like just these individual pieces too, like just creeping in from the side when you don't want to use the full tree like that too. By the way, these bare kind of spooky little trees like that. If you snap these things out too and put little green paint pen dots and little pink and white blossoms, suddenly it's like just springtime tree, and it's not spooky, by the way, too. So we can use it for all kinds of different scenarios like that. Springtime, with a bunch of bunny rabbits and stuff like that, with a bunch of little, whatever blossoms on them as well. So, yeah. But hopefully spooky enough for, that Halloween genre. Yeah, you can hang things from the limbs too. Yeah. So we have, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. With that Art Foamies one, see this overhanging branch like this? I envision that could be used really well. We have these little, like these girls lady on a swing set, and that could be used as that overhanging limb. It can be used with any of the ones. I've been using oak branch or something like that, but this one's like kind of extends out a little bit farther. And I think the larger one, Art Foamy one, I think it's flipped the other way. So this extension is coming out like this way. It's coming out on that end like that. But yeah, you can hang all kinds of things from that. It's all assessed. You can put all these little figures. They could be hanging from there too. For these little ghouls like that, I should say, they love hanging like that because they love the genre, and they're already ghouls, so they're not going to be dying from it. All right, but anyways, two quick cards. Fun stuff with the I used to call them iridescent, but the shimmer papers, I guess. And fun as always with Deanna's cool background papers like that. Always fun and always um, I don't know. It's fun thinking of different scenarios to use them in. All right. Hope you have a great rest of evening and weekend, and hope to see you in the next live stream next Friday now. Yeah, hope to see you next Friday's LSS. Thanks for joining in.